The deuce of the day.
You log. Not a log. I don't have a log, but I mean, you know.
Our deuce of the day goes to the UFC 314. I don't know if anybody checked it out on Saturday. I watched all the fights, but the two fights that really stuck out to me were the two main events. It was Michael Chandler and Paddy Pimblett. And if anybody hasn't watched Paddy play a fight, Paddy the Batty. And ladies and gentlemen, he did not, and I'll say this, I like Paddy as a person. He stands out. One of the reasons why he stands out, he walks at 215. He drops almost 65 pounds every single time. Usually within the last 3 months of his fight, he's dropping almost 60 pounds to fight at the 155 weight class, 156. This guy, he didn't really didn't disappoint. He put on a great fight. He absolutely dominated Michael Chandler. And Michael Chandler, say whatever you want about Michael Chandler, he's a tough kid. He really is a tough guy. He comes from Bellator. The guy just never wins. He never wins. No matter how many great fights he's been in over the last 6 years in the UFC, the guy can't get over the hump. I think he has one fight that he's won in the last 5 years. He's fought against some of the best UFC fighters in his weight class. Probably the hardest. It's been one of the hardest weight classes over the last 10, 15 years. And Paddy did not obviously disappoint. Put on a great show. And then obviously doing what he did, and that's choke out Michael Chandler and in the last round. And Michael Chandler, he cut his eye under his eye in the fourth round and just completely. Oh, well, I'm sorry, not in the fourth round, the second round. And in the third round, just absolutely tapped him out. I will say this could be the end of Michael Chandler. I just don't see the UFC keeping him around, even though he's a fan favorite. And after the fight, I got to say something. And I'll say this about Colby Covington. Colby Covington has always been a great personality for the UFC. Stands out because he's a Trump supporter and he's got an interesting personality. He likes to talk crap. And what did he do? Paddy's taking pictures and doing interviews in the backstage. And then he comes up and he starts with Paddy. And Paddy's standing there laughing and screaming and screeching and doing what he does, as he always does. And then Colby says, "Who did you beat?" You beat nobody. You beat a Michael Chandler that everybody beats. You beat nobody. What? You're going to be ranked 7th, and you come out there and you're speaking and you're telling the fans that everybody said that you weren't being in the top 10. You're not going to be in the top 5, and now you're challenging all the top 5 fighters in the weight class. Which, by the way, if you look at the top fighters in the weight class, I'm sorry, Poirier's old. He's at the tail end of his career. Gaethje is old. He's at the tail end of his career. Nobody in that weight class except the champion is in the prime of their career. So Paddy is the up-and-coming champion as far as I'm concerned. But Paddy laughed. He joked around. Paddy is and I'll say this, Conor McGregor of this day of the UFC. He's not as bad, and to me, he respects the press. He respects the people that are trying to interview him, try to talk to him, and he just gives you good content. I love this. The UFC needs somebody like Paddy to promote their product and put their product center stage again, and they need a personality like Paddy. So congratulations to Paddy Pimblett. And by the way, Paddy the Batty is going to be the champion of the 155 division very, very soon. I wouldn't be surprised in the next 2 or 3 years he's going to be the champion. He's going to hold that belt for a while because there's nobody young in that division moving forward. And Paddy's first of all, he's 30 years old and he's up and coming. This guy is going to be a champion, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's a double champion in another weight class. And then the championship, and I will say this was a great fight. Volkanovski versus, obviously, Lopes. Lopes, who was really the champion, and obviously they're fighting for the championship. Volkanovski in the last back-to-back fights being knocked out the way he has. Nobody would expect him. He's at the tail end of his career. If I'm not mistaken, Volkanovski is 36 years old. And this is a guy, first of all, he is the oldest champion to win a belt in UFC history. Just think about that. 35 years old, he wins a title. And this guy has been one of the greatest.
He's 36.
Yeah, he's 36 years old. Like I said, he's 36 years old. But he is the oldest champion to win a championship in UFC history. Just think about that. 36 years old, after being knocked out twice, back-to-back times, and then going against a knockout specialist in Diego Lopes, and then put up a fight and absolutely dominated the fight. Diego Lopes, who really barely lost a round in the last 3 years, he went out there and put on a clinic. Absolutely fantastic. And then after the fight, after giving all the praise to Lopes, and when he's obviously doing his interview in the middle of the ring, he said something very, very interesting. He said that, listen, when people look at you and say that you're done, that's when you go out there and prove them wrong. And all I have ever done in my career is prove everybody wrong. Everybody saying that I was too small. Everybody thinking that I was not that athletic. Everybody saying that I wasn't that great of a wrestler. I went out there and beat the best. And boy, oh boy, I'm so happy to bring a belt home to my family and my 2 girls once again. This guy is, to me, fantastic. He parties it up. He doesn't really drink, but he goes out there and he puts on a show for the UFC fans. Congratulations to Volkanovski, who's, to me, one of my favorite. Alexander Volkanovski, obviously coming from a country like Australia and just doing what he does best, and that's win, win, win. And after losing back-to-back championships and then showing up and beating one of the better fighters in the weight class and one of the better fighters right now the UFC has to provide, is just sensational. Congratulations to Alexander for winning a fight that a lot of people thought he had no chance of winning and thought that Lopes was going to put on a better fight and actually knock him out in the first 2 rounds. And Lopes could not land a good shot on Volkanovski. And that's because, and you got to give him a lot of praise, his training and what he does and how he puts on a show for the UFC fans. And he just stands out as just a great person and a person that you want to root for. So congratulations to him. So that, ladies and gentlemen, was my deuce of the day. UFC 314. And actually, Dana White got it right. And by the way, congratulations to Dana White inviting the president. Donald Trump showed up. Elon Musk showed up and we're center stage. And it was great to watch. It's great that everybody came and stood tall to watch one of the great UFC fights and one of the great UFC championships we've seen in the last 3 or 4 years. So it was great to see. So I know, Joba, you watched the UFC this past weekend. What did you think?
Yeah, no, I thought it was great. I mean, even the undercards were good.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Paddy's great for the sport. Obviously, it's always cool, and you've seen, the way things have changed a little bit in cards, and this is one of the better cards they've had in a while, and especially with 2 belts and the undercard fights. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy it. I've had a partnership with them for a while, and it's entertaining, and it's crazy how it's pushed boxing so far out of like the realm. And obviously here in Nebraska, we have probably the best pound for pound fighter in Bud Crawford.
Boxer, yeah.
But just
he's right there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, but no, I mean, I love it. It's a Saturday night where you cook and hang out and eat food and watch fights. So it's always a good time for us.
And by the way, I'm reading what Kevin is saying right now in the fan
Gaethje
window.
Is not old.
And Gaethje is old. He's 36 years old. How many years do you think Gaethje has left in the UFC? This guy just got knocked out against Holloway. I mean, embarrassed in the middle of the ring against Holloway. Max Holloway, and I'm going to say this right now.
That dude's a beast.
He is a beast. One of the best boxers I've ever seen in UFC history. This guy can stand against the best of them. And I'm telling you, he can box. If Jake Paul fights a guy like Max Holloway, good luck. You're not beating Max Holloway. So he's sensational to watch. So there are fighters, and Max Holloway's getting up there in age too. The UFC needs that next superstar, and Paddy is that. Paddy is the next superstar. He's not Conor McGregor. He's not somebody that you can say, oh, I hate this dude. I don't like this dude. This guy is a sensational person, has a sensational personality. He goes and speaks to the press. He doesn't hold back. He doesn't stand behind and bitch and moan who obviously Dana White puts him in the ring against. He wants to fight the best, and you can only respect these young guys that want to fight the best. I just think there's nobody in that division except the champion that's left that'll probably beat him. I just don't. I don't think that this division is as good as it used to be. There's just a bunch of old guys in a division that's trying to find their way back on top. And that's why I think Paddy is going to get a chance to win a championship very, very soon, and maybe even a double championship. And I disagree with you, Kevin. I think he can win in the 165, 170 division. He can win in the welterweight division. Why couldn't he? I mean, he could beat anybody in the welterweight division right now. The guy walks at 215, 220, and a guy cuts down 65 pounds, 3 months before his fight. I mean, how many fighters do you think do that? I mean, not many of them. Usually 15 to 20 pounds, not 50 pounds. That's why they call him Fatty. A lot of people call him Paddy Fatty, okay? Because the guy, after his fight, he's eating pizza, he's eating macaroni and cheese. I mean, this guy don't give a crap. He goes out there, he eats what he wants, he talks whatever he wants. And Colby Covington, you know what Colby's trying to do? He's trying to sell a fight. And that's what they're trying to do.
And he's trying to stay relevant.
Yeah, that's what he's trying to do. Because Colby hasn't won anything in the last, 2 years? What has he won? The only time he wins.
He's lost his last 3 fights, I believe.
Yeah, Colby hasn't won many fights in the last couple of years. And I like Colby, and I like his personality. But Colby, he's got to get back in the octagon and win a couple of fights before he could speak to a guy that hasn't lost a fight in, 4 fights, 5 fights? And I think he's an up-and-coming champion. Absolutely. And I think he's the face of the UFC moving forward.